Good day and hello, Aural Skills 2 students. I feel that it is necessary to give you one video lecture before the end of the semester in Aural Skills because I need to cover some bases with you. I need to show you how to do some things that we're going to be learning for the last week here of classes. And I also need to give you some important information that you need to know in order to be prepared for our final exam, which will be coming up obviously in final exams week. I believe the final exam for those of you that had me for a 9 a.m. section Tuesday and Thursdays this semester, the final exam for you guys is scheduled the morning of Tuesday, May 5th. And for those of you that had me for a 10 o'clock class this semester, your final exam is scheduled for the morning Thursday, May 7th. Okay. I will give you some more details about that in Canvas as I post things, but I just wanted to give you a heads up about that. So for the last week of classes, we are going to make some new strides in rhythm, both in the sight singing text and in the ear training text for rhythmic dictations. We're going to learn or add a new chord to our harmonic dictation examples and also to our real music examples. And if I can get through that information, plus give you the prepared material that will be on your sight singing final exam, I feel that I will have covered what I need to cover for you guys, and you will be able to, replay this video as many times as you need in order to review some of these concepts. So, let me first, before I forget, give you the prepared material for the sight singing final exam. And I have that material written up on a screen here. So if you want to jot this down in your notebook or somewhere that you will not lose it for Aural Skills, get that out and we'll take a look at that right now. So for the sight singing exam, I have 6 prepared melodies for you to practice and learn. The prepared melody that you will get for your sight singing final exam will be one of these 6. And they are, if you can't read them clearly from where you are, 4.27, 4.29, 4.34, 4.43, 4.46, and 4.47. The prepared rhythms that I want you to learn in preparation for the exam, they also come from chapter 4 in your text, just like the melodies. Those rhythms would be 4.63, 4.64, and any rhythm including these between 4.66 through 4.71. And the third and last part of the sight singing final exam will be a new melody. And all I can tell you is that that new melody you will have not seen before, but it will be in a major key, I guarantee it. So again, notate this information down. I will also send you this information in Canvas so that you can start preparing for the sight singing final exam. Just so you know, I am not assigning any other new additional melodies or rhythms for the rest of the semester except for exactly what is going to be on the final exam. So your job in terms of sight singing, this is actually a little bit easier than the ear training side of things. But for sight singing, all you need to do is you need to start practicing these 6 melodies and these prepared rhythms, and that's really going to be the only sight singing task left to the semester. There will be no more sight singing quizzes, so at least you got your work cut out for you. It's pretty straightforward and you know what you need to do to prepare. Next, I'd like to move on to talking about rhythms. And these rhythms will come from chapter 4 in your sightseeing book. In fact, we're going to be talking about rhythms that are like these that are assigned for your sightseeing final exam right now. And the way that the rhythms differ in chapter 4 from those that we have done previously in chapter 4, these rhythms are still in compound meter. That means the beat divides into 3 equal parts. You know, we're still saying and counting 1 la-li, 2 la-li. But these rhythms are going to be in less common meters. And by that I mean the dotted quarter note is not going to serve as the beat for these rhythms. We're going to be dealing with rhythms that use the dotted half note as the beat, and also rhythms that use the dotted eighth note as the beat. Let me go to another screen to see if I can illustrate to you what I mean. Last unit, or up until now, our experience with compound meter has been involved with what I call more common compound meters. That is the meters 6/8, 9/8, and 12/8 for time signatures. When you have these time signatures, the beat value, or the duration of a full whole beat, is always going to be a dotted quarter note. We have seen that. And the division of the beat, this dotted quarter, will divide into 3 eighth notes. We have seen and we have performed rhythms in this scheme with these meters and these time signatures. In fact, you did some for me for the last test that we recently had. And you know that we would count this as 1 la-li, or 2 la-li, or 3 la-li, whatever beat this type of division shows up on or appears in. Well, the new rhythms for the final exam are now shifting to less common meters, one of which is where the beat is no longer a dotted quarter, but now it's a dotted half note. And when the dotted half note serves as a beat in compound meter, the time signatures are going to be 6/4, 9/4, or 12/4. 4 will be on the bottom of the time signature. And remember that the bottom number in a compound time signature doesn't tell us what the duration of a full beat is. It tells us what the duration of one division of the beat is. And so if our beat is the dotted half, in these meters, 6/4, 9/4, and 12/4, each beat will be divisible into 3 even quarter notes. And for the quarter notes, we would speak 1 la-li, or 2 la-li, or 3 la-li, or whatever the beat may be. Okay. So transferring from this and looking at rhythms notated in this meter here, or these types of meters, compared to this, will take a little adjustment. It'll take a little getting used to. You'll have to start thinking as the big unit, or the beat, that the measures are parceled into are now going to be dotted halves, and then the divisions, the faster durations, like the 1 la-li, 2 la-li, they will be the quarters in this meter, 6/4, 9/4, and 12/4. Similarly, one other less common meter we will see for our rhythms for the final exam will be when the dotted eighth note serves as the beat. Now we're going the other direction. We're getting shorter note durations than we had when we used the normal or the more common meters here. It doesn't necessarily mean that the meters that you perform in the rhythms have to be faster. It just means you have to get adjusted to seeing things visually slightly differently. Here, the unit, the big beat that each measure is parceled into, is the dotted eighth. That means then that the division of the beat is going to be 3/16 notes. 3/16 notes. And the meters that you will see that use this level of rhythmic duration, these durations and values, are going to be 6/16, 9/16, and 12/16, those time signatures. So for the 16th notes here, we would be saying 1 la-li, 2 la li, 3 la li, again, or whatever the beat may be. Okay? So if you don't have this in your notes or you'd like to write it down, you may go ahead and pause the video here and get this in your notebook for future reference, because I know making an adjustment from here to either one of these types of compound meters, the longer one or the shorter one, that can be a little bit of an adjustment, and you just got to get used to seeing patterns and seeing groups in these note durations rather than these note durations. On page 62 in your sight singing textbook, I'd like to go through a few rhythms from chapter 4 to show you how they would be performed, what they would sound like, this type of thing. The two rhythms that I'm going to do for you, I believe I have chosen because they are two of the rhythms that have been assigned to you for the sight singing final exam. So we're really focusing in on those particular rhythms, the ones for the sight singing final. One rhythm I'd like to demonstrate to you here is the top one on the screen. It's 464. You can see, for instance, that the meter or the time signature is 12/4. To find out how many beats total there are in a measure of a compound time signature, divide the top number by 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So there are 4 full, complete beats in each measure in this rhythm. The 4 tells us the duration not of the beat, it tells us the duration of a division of the beat. So 3/4 notes put together, that would fill a beat, because we're in compound or triple division. 3/4 notes would equal the sum total of a dotted half. So the dotted half note is our beat in this rhythm. And I can see that this would be beat 1, for instance. This would be beat 2 with a li at the end of beat 2. And then this would be beats 3 and 4. 3 and 4. I will turn one of the lights on here in the room, because you can follow along with the rhythm in your own sight singing book, but I want to turn one of the lights on so that you can at least see my conducting and hear and see my tapping, so that you know how to perform and practice this type of rhythm. So for 464, I would probably give myself a measure of preparation to get the tempo set. So I would be conducting in 4. 1 la li, 2 la li, 3 la li, 4. 1, 2 li, 3. 1, 2 li, 3 la li, 4. 1, 3 la li, 1. Just like that. One last rhythm I would like to perform for you, also on the same page in your sight singing books, is rhythm 469. And you can see that this rhythm uses the time signature 916. Divide the top number by 3 to tell how many beats are in a measure. 9 divided by 3 is 3. So we know that there are 3 beats in a measure, and therefore we will be conducting these rhythms using the 3 pattern. The 16 on the bottom of the time signature tells me that that is the duration of a division of the beat, not the beat itself. So since we're in triple or compound division of the beat, 3/16 put together would take up the same time as a dotted eighth. Therefore, I know that the length or the duration of a beat in this meter is exactly a dotted eighth. So once again, let me hit the lights, and I noticed that in this rhythm, it starts on beat 3. This is a pickup measure. So I'll go ahead and perform this for you right now, just to show you how it's done. I'm going to give myself 2 beats of preparation. 1 lolly 2, 3 lolly 1, lolly 3 lolly 1, 2, 3 lee 1, lolly 1, and that's how that's done. I trust that using these 2 rhythms I've just performed as models, you should be able to learn the rest of the rhythms that I have given you, the prepared rhythms for the sight singing final exam. The sight singing melodies on the final exam also come from Chapter 4. Now, we have not sung any melodies from Chapter 4 in your sight singing text yet. Last test, we just finished by singing a bunch of melodies still from Chapter 3. And the thing about the melodies in Chapter 4, I guess the new aspect about these melodies, is that they are in compound meter. And to my recollection, we have never sung or performed any sight singing melodies that have been in compound meter yet. We have only dealt with rhythms in compound meter thus far. So this is going to be, I guess, our first attempt at developing the skill and practicing melodies that are in compound meter. In other words, singing a melody or singing notes while conducting or hand signing in compound meter. One of the melodies that I'd like to go through with you is 446. Let me see if I can get you a page number for that. Yeah, it's page 58 in your textbook. And you can see that the melody is in 6/8 meter. Again, any time signature with a 6/9 or a 12 on the top means that you're in compound meter and you're in triple division of the beat. What I think I'll do then, to show you how this is performed, since I think this is one of the trickier ones, is I will establish the key of D flat major. You can see the key signature there. It doesn't start on Do, it does end on Do. It ends on D flat. Notice we're in the bass clef here. Because we're in D flat, I can see that it starts on Sol, but that it goes past Do, and it leaps up higher than that and goes to Mi. Okay. So even the initial leap might be a bit tricky until you hear it and then also practice it, and then it won't be so tricky some more. So let's get a D flat major in our mind's ear. And I will sing the scale first. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Do, mi, sol, mi, do. You may have arpeggio if you like. So, the last thing I'm going to look at is the number of this exercise. It is 446. That means I will need to hand sign this melody while tapping the division of the beat. Remember, even numbered melodies are hand signs, odd numbered melodies are conducting. So my first pitch is sol, and I can find that here. Sol. And I notice that I start on the li of beat 2. The pickup measure there. The li of beat 2. Sol, mi, 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 re, do, sol, sol. Sol, la, mi, sol. Sol, la, do, do, sol, do. Re, mi, sol, do. So you'll notice that there are a fair amount of leaps in this melody, some of them being quite large. In fact, this initial leap here is a sixth. In fact, it's a major sixth. And the next leap that I see that's large is also right here, and that is the leap of an octave from a low sol to a high sol. I see some more leaps of a sixth, and again, these leaps of a sixth, they're not just random leaps of a sixth, they are leaps between tones of the tonic triad. So when you leap from do down to mi, that is a minor sixth, whereas this one again, from sol up to mi, that is a major sixth. And it looks like you have another octave descending leap here in this measure, and it looks like you have another sixth descending in this measure. But again, go ahead and play back the performance that I just did if you need to recall how it sounds. Otherwise, use the piano to check your pitch. Please don't use the piano to play the melodies before you've tried them out. And I'm trusting that if you can get this one, you should be able to get the remainder of the prepared melodies I have assigned for the sight singing final exam. I'm going to switch to the ear training side of things right now, and before I leave this screen for the last time, I do want to point out that this information that I've already talked about in connection with the sight singing rhythms, this will also apply to the rhythmic dictations in your ear training book now. Okay? Sometimes, if I can, I always like to have the same types of rhythms and or melodies that we're dealing with in the sight singing book to match the rhythms and the melodies that we are doing in the ear training book. And this happens to be an instance where the rhythms line up just perfectly. Okay? So your rhythmic dictations now will be in these less common meters, 6/4, 9/4, 12/4, or 6/16, 9/16, and 12/16. And remember, when you are about sitting down and about ready to listen to and dictate one of the rhythmic exercises, if the meter signature is 6/4, 9/4, or 12/4, you've got to be thinking that the full beat is a dotted half and the divisions of the beat are quarter notes. In fact, when you dictate a rhythm in one of these three time signatures, you will probably not, in fact, you will not need to use any beams or any flags for eighth notes. It's all going to be quarter notes, half notes, dotted half notes, maybe whole notes, and dotted whole notes. Down here, on the other hand, when you're sitting down to dictate a rhythm in 6/16, 9/16, or 12/16 meter, you've got to be clear in your mind and set up the pattern that the dotted eighth is the beat in these meters. And the 16th note serves as the division of the beat value. Okay? So when you hear 1 lolly, 2 lolly in a rhythmic dictation with one of these time signatures, you're writing down 3 16th notes on that beat. Again, just like in the rhythms of the sight singing book, it just takes a little bit of an adjustment, getting used to seeing things this way and having the brain process it just as well as the brain processes the common compound meters. Moving right along, the next thing I'd like to discuss is harmonic dictation. And as I may have mentioned at the top of this lecture, we are adding one more chord into the mix for our ears to identify. And so far we've been dealing in harmonic dictation and real music with the root position 1 chord, the root position 4 chord, and the root position 5, possibly root position 5-7. I'm not picky between 5 or 5-7. Well, starting today and through the next week and into the sight singing final exam, I would like to add the cadential 6-4 chord. The cadential 6-4 chord. So instead of, or in addition to, I should say, 1, 4, and 5 now, we're adding a 4th chord, and that is the cadential 6-4. And we always analyze the cadential 6-4 with the symbol Roman numeral 1-6-4. 1-6-4. In aural skills, it's helpful to know that the 1-6-4 or cadential 6-4 chord is going to contain the pitches do, mi, and sol, but the sol is going to always be in the bass or on the bottom of those 3 notes. So for 1-6-4 in aural skills, I have written here that sol is always going to be in the bass, the lowest sounding tone, and then do and or mi can appear in any of the upper voices of the texture, either the tenor, the alto, or the soprano. But you must be careful and realize that for 1-6-4, sol is in the bass. Well, you might be thinking, maybe this is going to be kind of confusing because we already have a chord that we're supposed to listen for and write down when we hear sol in the bass, and that is the 5 chord. Well, maybe you can, let's just take stock of all the harmonies we have, look at their bass notes and the possible Roman numerals, and I'll show that to you on a different screen here. And if you want to take notes on this particular screen I'm going to show you, you're welcome to. But kind of summarizing everything we've been doing in harmonic dictation and real music thus far, I've got, in major keys, I've got all the scale degrees listed in this row. And in the second row, I've got the Roman numerals now that are possible answers for when you hear and write down these pitches in the bass. So again, still, whenever you hear do in the bass, the Roman numeral, the chord, must be 1, root position 1. We have not learned or dealt with any others yet. And likewise, when you hear fa in the bass, the chord that it must be is a 4 chord, root position 4, because we have not learned any other chords with fa as the bass note. So here's where the new item appears. You can see now when sol is in the bass, we have 2 chords to choose from. It's either going to be a cadential 6-4 chord, or it's going to be a 5 chord. That's the new item right there. Now, the difference between the 2 chords is a little subtle. In other words, how do I listen for or hear the distinction between a 1-6-4 and a 5 chord? Well, the difference is subtle, but it is perceivable. You can sense it. When you hear sol in the bass, usually near the end of a progression, right? because where is a cadential 6/4 going to occur? Is it going to be the first chord in a harmonic progression? No. Is it going to be the second chord in a harmonic progression? No. Using your common sense, a cadential 6/4 will probably be like towards the end of the harmonic progression. It's going to be maybe the third to the last chord in most cases, because we know 1/6/4 goes to 5, and then 5 goes to 1. Now, so usually near the end of the progression, when you hear sol in the bass, I want you to listen, number one, I want you to listen for instability of the total chord sound or stability of the chord sound that goes along with that bass note sol. Okay. The cadential 6/4, any triad in second inversion, is weak. It is unstable. It's very brittle sounding. However, a root position chord like a 5 or a 5/7 is going to be much stronger and much more stable sounding. So if you can hear the difference between unstable versus stable or weak versus strong, that is one way that the ear can distinguish between the two chords, even though they have the same bass note. Let me go to the piano, set up a key, and then I'll go ahead and play a cadential 6/4 first, followed by a root position 5. Alright, here is a cadential 6/4. And here is a root position 5. Even if I revoice the chord, I still have sol in the bass. It's still going to sound similar. That's a cadential 6/4. And this is the stronger root position 5. Maybe one last one. How about, let's try it this way. 1/6/4 first, and then 5. And of course, that is the order that we've learned for progressions and their functions. You can see that the cadential 6/4 always comes before the root position 5. Never is it switched around. So in other words, in future harmonic dictations and for the final exam, you'll never, if you hear sol twice in the bass, right next to each other, one after the other, you would never write 5 first and then 1/6/4. That wouldn't make sense. You would write 1/6/4 first and then 5. The other way that I can think of and that I know of that could be helpful to you for distinguishing between the sound of a 1/6/4 versus a 5 chord with sol in the bass is to look at the chord this way. We have talked about how the cadential 6/4 in this Aural skills class, well, it's also true in theory, but we don't look at it necessarily this way. The cadential 6/4 consists of sol in the bass and then do and mi somewhere in the upper voices of the texture. Notice what the syllables, solfege syllables are for a root position 5. They are, yes, sol in the bass, but they are not do, nor are they mi in the upper voices. The other pitches or syllables for the 5 chord would be T and re. T and re. So, you hear sol in the bass, and maybe you're not so good at listening for weakness versus strength, or instability versus stability. Well, there's another way. When you hear sol in the bass, can you pick out or can you hear do or mi in one of the upper voices? Remember, we're supposed to be not only writing the bass line down in our harmonic dictations, but also the soprano line. Does the soprano have do or mi? If it does, you know for certain that the chord is 1/6/4 and not 5. Because 5 does not contain do or mi. Likewise, I mean, if you hear sol in the bass, and in the soprano or in one of the upper voices, if you can hear re or T, that means you know you're listening to a 5 chord and you're not listening to a 1-6-4 because Re and T do not occur in the 1-6-4 chord. So there are some differences that the ear can pick out. And use either or both of these approaches to distinguishing between the sound of a 1-6-4 versus a 5. Either use the actual syllables that you hear in the upper voices, or use the instability versus stability method. If you can use both methods, that's great, because that'll just reinforce your initial, probably your initial assumption. So what I would like to do is, I think in the key of, let's say, E flat major, I would like to vocally arpeggiate this progression for you using hand signs. I know in class we have not actually together physically vocally arpeggiated the cadential 6-4. So I'm going to do that for you now as part of this progression, and I want you to see if you can hear the uniqueness of the sound. Something that we may not have focused on, well, we did in theory, but not so much in this class yet. Just focus on that light, unstable sound of the 1-6-4 as I vocally arpeggiate through the progression. So here we go. Do, mi, sol, mi, do, fa, la, do, la, fa, fu. Hang on a second, I might have just mistakenly sang something there. Okay, scratch those last few seconds. Let me start over again. Do, mi, sol, mi, do, fa, la, do, la, fa, sol, do, mi, do, sol, sol, ti, re, ti, sol, do, mi, sol, mi, do. Yeah, sorry about that glitch on the 4 chord from before. My ears told me something didn't sound right. Now, we don't have time to go through multiple hearings of a harmonic dictation example right now. However, I thought I would at least play through a harmonic dictation example in your ear training book, and I'll play it once, and then after that I'll go over the answer here on the screen. Now, just for your benefit, if you want to treat this as a practice for your own benefit, then what I would do is after I play this passage for you, stop the video, go back and listen to the video as many times as you'd like, preferably like 4 or 5, and treat it as an actual exercise in class. Putting down the Roman numerals that you hear, the bass notes that you hear, and the soprano notes that you hear. Again, I'm only going to play it once, and then we'll take a look at the at the answers to this example. So this is in the key of E major. And the first chord, as you see it there, is voiced like this from the bottom up. Bass, tenor, alto, soprano. And this is the progression. Again, if you want to practice this more, stop the video here, go back and listen to it several more times. From what I have played and what you have listened to, especially if you have listened to it for more than 3 times, or 3 times would even be good too, but you notice that the first chord we have is a 1 chord. After that, the bass took a leap down to Fa, which makes this second chord a 4 chord. And then across the bar line, I hope you heard an ascending step. Fa goes up to Sol. Indeed, it did. And Sol in this key of E major is B. This Sol was also followed by the same pitch, another Sol, which was then followed by, I think it was this one, not the low one. Yeah, it was followed by a Do right here. Well, if Do is in the bass, you know the chord has to be 1. The only question becomes, look, I have Sol twice. I have 2 of them in this measure. If you heard correctly, these 2 chords are not identical. They're not the same. In other words, they're not both 5s, and they're not both 1/6/4s. So the common sense tells you, because you know about harmonic progression, that the second Sol would be a 5 chord, and the first Sol would be the bass note of a cadential 6/4. And this is the exact progression, the correct answer. The soprano notes, let me put those up here quickly. We have Sol in the first chord, then we went to La, and we know La fits in a 4 chord, because a 4 chord is always Fa, La, Do. And then after the La, we went down to Sol, and then after that we went down to Fa, and then after that we finished on Mi. Now, using your mind, using what you know about music, think of what this means. Sol, does that fit into a cadential 6/4 chord? Absolutely, it's just doubling the bass. But how on earth does a Fa fit into a dominant chord when you have Sol in the bass? Well, the only way that that's possible, and I know it now for certain because I know I heard it, it's in the melody, and we've written it down in the soprano line. The only way Fa is paired with Sol for now is it's got to be a 5/7 chord. Now again, I'm not going to be picky whether you put root position 5 triad or 5/7, but especially when you have the 7th of the chord in one of the lines that you dictate, I think you should have the precise chord, because you have the bass note and you have the 7th of the chord. So 5/7 is the correct answer here. And of course, Mi in the soprano fits nicely into the Do, Mi, Sol tonic chord there. All right. So the last thing I want to discuss before my time runs out is real music. We are going to be including the cadential 6/4 into the real music examples now, just like the harmonic dictations. And everything I had just talked about and taught regarding the cadential 6/4 in harmonic dictations, in aural skills, that also applies the same to real music examples. So I've got one more progression that I'd like to vocally arpeggiate for you. This time it's going to be in the key